Thank you for tuning into our podcast, the Far Eyes Podcast. I will be the moderator for this podcast, Francisco, and this is Jade, Berlin, and Jasmine. And today we will be talking about litter in the Bay Area, and particularly we will be going over the effects of litter in the Bay Area, causes of litter, and by the end we will be talking about what we can do to help reduce litter in the Bay Area. And so to get us started on this discussion, Jade, mind telling us about the effects of litter in the Bay Area?
Of course. One of the effects that I had is that it can have a really negative effect on humans' respiratory and immune system. Uh, there's an article that I found on Earth Day that was published on July 9th of 2024, and they talked about how the trash can be, it can release microplastics and it can release toxic chemicals to these, and it can eventually get caught into soil or groundwaters or even, like large bodies of water nearby. And sometimes the water that we drink too. And these toxic chemicals can have, they can get contaminated with, the air or the water, even food, which can eventually lead into long-term health issues such as cancer or respiratory issues and potentially even death.
I thought something similar about how toxic chemicals.
Yeah.
And in the Journal of Toxicology and Risk Assessment from April 2019, Okunola Alabi said that it's this like haphazard disposal of trash, open air burning. That's what causes these toxic chemicals to leach out into the air and the soil and water. And, like it makes not just you know them toxic, but everything around it. Everything it comes into contact.
The wildlife too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could, I guess, say like the overall like negative effect of like all this litter is, the impact that's on our environment, contaminating our soil, our
Yeah.
water sources, and then also, these animals as well that are surrounding all these sources as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings me to a point I want to talk about too, and that's that litter and like reducing litter is like an ongoing problem that we've had to like deal with, right? Like especially throughout our lives, we've always thought to like,
It's
oh,
always been a problem.
reduce, reuse, recycle. It's always been a problem since forever, right?
Mhm.
But I feel like in recent years, there's been like a particular focus on plastics and like specifically microplastics, right? And microplastics are just these like tiny pieces of plastic that are like really small, like around like 5 millimeters, which is around like fifth of an inch, something like smaller than that, right? And the problem with these plastics, microplastics, is that they frequently end up in our aquatic environments, right? Like whether it be from like wind picking them up because of how small they are, or whether it be water or stormwater runoff that like when it rains picks up these particles and washes them away into our bay, or even with like illegal dumping, right?
Yeah.
All of these serve as sources that like contaminate our environment by spreading these microplastics to aquatic environments, right? And the negative effect of that is then that it negatively impacts our wildlife, or particularly in water, right? Like fish mistake the microplastics for food and ingest them, and they could be small enough so that even planktonic organisms and other filter feeders can then like consume them as well. And the negative effect of this is that it blocks their digestive tract, it reduces their growth rates, it blocks enzyme production, and reduces their general reproduction, right? So it harms the general biological processes, right? And so this like litter isn't just like a contaminant for our environment, it also negatively affects our wildlife. And then also, if you think, well, what does it have to do with me? It's sad that the wildlife is getting negatively affected. It's bad that it's ending up everywhere in our environment. But also a negative effect for us is that if it can be picked up by the wind and it's small enough to be picked up by the wind, right? It can also be breathed in by us, end up in our respiratory tracts, or even with the food we eat, right? It contaminates the fish. We eat seafood, and then now that's also a part of us. And that's just also kind of true to show like the negative effects of what this like microplastics especially can do is that they can easily spread and end up in our bodies as well.
And they're so small that you don't even realize you're digesting them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And like especially like like microplastics and the toxic chemicals when they get into the soil, we grow food in soil, and so of course they're gonna pick it up too. And so if we eat anything really, you're at risk of getting all
Yeah, like you grow it and then you Yeah.
digesting it. Yeah. No, most of my research as well, like I said, mostly consisted of one of the most trash or like category of trash that we have a problem with is plastic. It's a big one. Um, I read that around 40% of all of like the trash is mostly open air burn. It's burned on open air, and most of it's plastic. So when it's burned in an open air, all that toxic emission goes out into the air, and then we breathe it in, and that
Yeah.
causes a lot of respiratory illnesses and issues that eventually lead to health decline. So, all that breathing in all that harmful stuff, it messes up
Yeah.
our organs and stuff. There was an article I read on the California Ocean Protection Council. It was last updated July 7th, 2025, where it said roughly around 11 million metric ton of trash here in California, and that they were spending around $428 million to clean it and control the issue. But I say, how is it that we're spending that much money and we still have a lot of plastic problem issues here in the Bay Area and around the world in general? Like, how many people are still having health decline issues because we're inhaling the microplastics?
Yeah.
How many people are having the respiratory illnesses or issues? How many people are developing cancer because we are using plastic things that, that can harm us in that way?
Yeah, and you brought up the respiratory issue too, and I also want to tie that back into what Jade was saying about potential for cancer, right? Like a study I found in Science Direct by Ewa Winiarska. Sorry, I'm bad. On June 15, 2024, states that exposure to nano and microplastics in humans, right, potentially leads to those serious health effects such as various cancers, respiratory disorders, or even inflammatory bowel disease. So it's not just that it then like all these like litter like it's like whether it be from like inhaling all these fumes or like microplastics or ingesting like seafood that then is contaminated by these microplastics. But when it makes our way into our bodies, then that has the effect of potentially leading to cancer, which is then life threatening, right? So in the most severe cases, the effects of these like types of litter is that they can end our lives, which is something that we want to fight against, right? We're not
We want to live as long as possible.
Yeah.
precisely. So that's kind of just shows to show the severity of this problem.
Yeah, it's like we as people like creating such a small like problem like microplastics that we don't even realize it. As it keeps going, it goes into a huge problem that eventually can hurt us in the long run.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
it's so small you don't expect it to build up as fast and as aggressively as it does,
but that's also part of like the danger, right? It's so
Mhm.
like even something like microplastic is so like small, right? That it's almost like you don't really look out for it because like if you ever to say like see a water bottle or a plastic bottle right in front of you, like okay, that's litter, I can throw that away. But a microplastic, you're not gonna catch
Yeah.
that, right? It's just gonna make its
Like
way into your body, and at that point, the harm's already done.
yeah, like almost never see it with your bare eyes. No.
Yeah, and so we've talked about the effects of litter in the Bay Area, and we've talked about a lot of, concerning like subject matter, right? And actually, this brings us to the causes, right? So litter can do cause all these dangerous things. Well, what's causing litter in the Bay Area? And Jade, mind starting us off on this one?
Of course, a cause that I had was that a lot of people kind of just tend to buy stuff that they don't really need. There's an article that I found that was published by United States Environment Protection, and it mentioned how it went from 4.5 pounds was being thrown away per person every single day, and then a year later in 2018 it went up to 4.9. It kind of just like shows how people just kind of just buy something for the person and kind of just throw it away without seeing like it could either be reused or used in a different purpose than what it was originally intended.
Almost as a type of like hoarding stuff that you don't even really need, and you just buy them because you see them on TikTok or whatever,
It's
and
like, oh,
you
I
think
want
they're
that, so
cool,
they buy it.
but like
Yeah.
you end up not even needing it.
Yeah, like it's not useful, so you just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, starting the problem. I found something similar, but instead of like what people are doing, it's more like companies how they keep using like single-use plastic for their packaging.
In an article from Humanities and Social Sciences Communications from January 2020 or 2019, January Anthony Andrew said that at the present rate of growth, plastic production is expected to even double in the next 20 years.
It just keeps increasing.
I know,
every
it's like
time.
we're already making so much that we don't know what to do with it. Why are we making more on top of that?
Yeah, and it kind of comes back to like, what's causing all this litter, right? It comes back to like specifically with plastic, it's not just like improper disposal of plastics, but just generally using items that contain plastic is even enough to spread those microplastics, right? Like for instance, I have another source from Science Direct or another study from Science Direct, this time by Rebecca Seton on August 15, 2016, that states that sources of microplastic contamination to the environment included microbeads used in personal care products, fibers derived from clothes and other synthetic materials, fishing lines, fragments from the photodegradation of larger plastic items, as well as plastic foam particles from polyester products, as well as cigarette filters. So there's kind of like two categories here. There's like the improper disposal of plastic products that leads to like increased litter that then biodegrades into like not biodegrades, but then like degrades into
The microparticle.
microplastics. But then there's also the use of like general items that also leads to said microplastic contamination, right? Like for improper disposal, right? Just simply leaving a plastic container out or a plastic bottle in the sunlight in the heat is enough to break it down into microplastics that then get like a that then when it rains, stormwater runoff washes these away into our oceans, right? Which is bad. And then also from like a personal use perspective, it's also microbeads from personal care products and like fibers from like synthetic material, right? These can get washed down the drain, or even when you put these in your washer, right? The tumbling action of the washer causes these like materials to have like increased friction with each other, where it tears off these microfibers, which are another form of microplastic, and these then get washed away and taken into water treatment facilities, where unfortunately, because of how small the fibers are, right, how small the microplastic is, how buoyant it is, and also due to its relative non-reactive nature, it ends up like the water treatment filters unable to properly get rid of it, and so that then gets released into our environment. So then it's kind of like these two sources. Like it's not just when it comes to like this kind of litter, right? Especially at this micro scale, you don't just got to worry about what we carelessly dispose of, but also what we use that may contain plastics that then also it helps to generate that overall microplastic contamination in our environments.
Yeah. See, I didn't know washers had like an effect on that. I didn't even know it had microplastics.
Yeah, it's from like clothes. They have these like microfibers that's a type of plastic. And then like when these, when you wash something, it like spins a lot, right? It like that creates a lot of friction between the material, which then unfortunately tears off some of those microfibers that then makes its way, right,
It could
into
also
water
be from
treatment
like
facilities.
when they're like packaged in like plastic wrap,
Yeah,
maybe too.
stuff like that too.
That's why it's so sad to see the rise in like fast fashion, like Shein and Temu, where like they're using like synthetic fabrics and like they're making so many and so fast that just everyone's buying them, and then they're not really good quality, so then they get thrown away, and then
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
yeah.
Ends up in landfills, ends up degrading in the environment, etc. It's not pretty.
Yeah. To add to a point Francisco made, I found the thing that said water waste treatment plants were giving like letting around 490,000 microplastics go into like the Bay Area every day. Saying because they were designed to only keep out like the big plastics, and since the microplastic is super super small, you can't the way they filter or something like that. They can't prevent it from going into the water. So I feel like the way they're designed is they're only looking into like the big plastic pieces
Yeah.
and not into the smaller ones. There was this article that was published on the Biological Times by Rabia Aoun. I don't know if I said that right, published on May 2024, saying the amount of trash, mainly plastic, that was going into our waters was huge. Also, with like oil spills and sewage dumping and land runoffs, that not only was it like hurting the sea life creatures, like we said before,
Mhm.
you know,
it hurting the sea life creature like fish and stuff. It hurts us because we eat fish and stuff like that, and then but also hurting our ecosystems in general.
Yeah, and also want to kind of bring it back to what you said about like like hundreds of thousands of microplastics going into the Bay Area, right? This also ties back to something I also found, which is that although this is in like a year, right? But like in the year scale, right? Around 7 million, or not 7 million, sorry, 7 trillion microplastics
cool.
a year
That
And a
makes it
bunch
go
of
better.
into the
zeros.
bay, right? A bunch of zeros, right? And that's because these microplastics are so tiny and so numerous that they accumulate at like much larger sizes, right? And what was surprising to me about this is that around half of it is from tire wear, right? So it's like
Oh wow.
that's something I never even thought
Yeah,
of,
no,
right?
I thought it was just
So
rubber.
and the reason why that is because tires are made with this like synthetic rubber, and which is a type of plastic, right? And so when you drive, naturally wheels create a lot of friction with the road, whether it is like especially like when you're braking or when you're traveling, and this tears off these kind of like tiny microplastics, right? Pieces of plastic that end up on our streets, and that's where the rainwater comes in, stormwater runoff, washes it back into the bay, right? So it's like another variable to consider, right? With the personal item usage, right? I mentioned like the washer and the clothes and stuff like that, but it's also with vehicles, right? And tires, creating these excess microplastic litter that we're not even aware of,
Yeah.
that then contaminates the environment that we live in.
Yeah, because I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, no.
It's
You
I never
wouldn't
thought of
think
it
that
either.
one thing that you use almost every day to get from work, from
Yeah,
home to work, from work to school or whatever, wherever you're going, you think that you're, leaving behind a bunch of like microplastics.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so especially you think of like, oh, gas burning and greenhouse gases, but there's also this angle with the microplastic now that's been emerging in recent years. More studies are being conducted on it, finding out, well, it is not actually bad, and all these things that we use actually contribute to that because of our lives are generally like in our lives we have a lot of plastic products, involved like everywhere, in the things we
Yeah.
buy, the things we wear, in our
Yeah.
food, and now I mean our tires as well.
Yeah, you
It's
just
a
can't escape
crazy
it.
mess. You can't escape
Yeah.
it.
I think it's
Yeah.
also to the fact that some people don't like if, for example, it's like human decency. Like just if, for example, if you're gonna go somewhere and you're taking a piece of candy or whatever, you're eating something as a plastic wrapper, you know, don't just leave it there where it's like, oh, the wind can take it and wherever, or like leave it, or make sure like it goes inside the trash can, or like pick if you see a trash, pick it up. It's kind of like
Yeah.
not just letting your piece of trash that you left just the wind so that wind can take it.
Yeah.
Assuming like, oh, it's small, it won't be that bad, but some are microplastics and they're
Exactly. Because
accumulating.
it leads to that overall contamination, right? You think, oh, okay, this wrapper's not going to make that big of a difference, but think about the difference that microplastics are doing. And think about how much smaller they are than that wrapper,
Yeah.
right?
And if everyone thinks like that, then
Yeah.
everyone's gonna be littering.
So it's kind of like, why do we have all this litter, right? That's causing all these negative effects. It's because, of this improper disposal of material, right? Or just general use of like plastic in products that we use that we may not even be necessarily aware of.
Yeah.
Right? And so this then brings us to a close on this topic about the causes of litter in the Bay Area. And now that we've gone over the causes and the effects that this can have, naturally you want to know, well, what can we do to mitigate this problem, right? So, Berlin, am I telling us about what we can do to help reduce litter?
So this is something my family actually does. You guys can visit Cal Recycle, CAL Recycle, and it'll show you locations near you of, places that will pay you to take your bottles and cans, So instead of just, throwing them away, just save them up, put them, in your garage or something, save them up, and then, go to that website, Cal Recycle, and, find a location near you, bring it over there, and they will pay you for your cans and bottles.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay. Can you say one more time what it was called?
Cal Recycle.
Cal Recycle.
CAL Recycle.
And they pay you?
Yeah, like you just bring all the cans and bottles you can, and they will give you money for it.
Yeah, I think even like measures like these are important because like really anything helps, right? You may think of like, oh, you need like some kind of incentive to do the right thing, but like but like that's people may have other things going on in their lives.
Like be busy and not
Yeah,
have time.
and this kind of gives them that extra boost to go out there and like do something, right? Make a sizable change, a difference.
Mhm.
And if there's a little reward for a little treat, that's also good too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's nice.
As Berlin was saying, I found one almost similar, although this one doesn't pay you. But it's called the Bay Area Clean Water Agency. This one, they accept volunteers and they go to like cities and streets normally, and then whatever city you're at, and you just pick up trash and kind of like pick up, volunteer. It's kind of like just picking up trash,
Yeah.
anything you see. There was this article that I read on the CWEA. It's related to the Bay Area Clean Water Agency.
Hmm.
It was by Laura Laura and Funnel, something like that, in the year 2022. It was they were implementing a recycled water program. How in order to remove like plastic from our oceans and stuff, they were transmitting the awareness or informing people using like TV channels like PCBS to inform people. I think that's very clever because nowadays people follow anything on social media.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel like using those platforms like TikTok, Instagram, stuff like that, that you can inform people and be like aware of like what's going on in your like city, and helping or like, oh, let's go pick up trash here in this neighborhood or stuff like that. I feel like that's a good way to create awareness to the problem that we have.
Yeah, because like, part of the contamination to our environments is, that leftover trash or that stuff that isn't like properly disposed of. And this kind of, leads to like a common solution to the problem, which is like, oh, just don't litter, just recycle, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
But it's not, that simple, right? But then in that case, still performing these actions still does help, right?
Hmm.
Like a plastic bottle you pick up off the street, that will be less microplastics being eventually delivered to the environment, be the degradation or yeah, degradation of that like bottle, right? And so it's like these like initiatives or small differences where you go out and like pick litter that like then leads to overall a less contaminated environment, less microplastics on the streets, less microplastics being washed away, which ultimately
Hmm.
fosters a overall net positive, healthier environment. Even if the change is like relatively small, it's still a good thing, right?
Yeah, and then it's something that you can go do with like your friends, something you're helping and you're hanging out with people you basically you love, people that you
Yeah.
also make a difference with. So it's like, oh, go hang out with your friends and pick up trash in your neighborhood or whatever, stuff like that.
I found something for that actually. If you guys want to help clean up a highway or something, you can contact the coordinator for that here at Fairfield. It's the number is 707-428-7767. And if you
Okay.
call them, they can give you information about, when they're going to be doing the pickups for the highways. If you can get a specific one, and, you can get a group of friends together, call that number and figure out what way you can help, and where at.
Hmm.
Yeah, and also I kind of like what you guys brought up about especially the group approach. I feel like that's also important because I mean doing things as a group just kind of makes it easier to facilitate the action, right?
Yeah.
And like having all these personal individual things that we ourselves can do is like better than giving all these like general statements like, okay, well, how do we solve all this litter problem? Well, easy, just reduce reduction, right?
Yeah.
Put filters on our waterway runoffs to like catch some of that microplastic that would
Hmm.
otherwise end up in the ocean, or just like enact policy change to get like less plastics in our material in our like the materials we buy and our tires and stuff like that. Design innovation, that same field, right? Create better filters in water treatment facilities, or create tires that don't use as much synthetic rubber so they generate less microplastics. These are more general solutions that are kind of like obvious, but it's not something that we ourselves can really do much about besides like making a phone call to our local government representative, be like, hey, do this, we have this
Yeah,
problem.
enforce
Yeah.
policy.
But I like what you guys have been talking about, like taking those personal approaches. And that kind of leads me as well to one, because I mentioned that washers had this effect where they, the tumbling action of the washer can cause microfibers to be leached off of the clothes at their end. And so one of my a personal approach you can take in this regard to kind of reduce some of those microfiber contamination, microfiber and microplastic contamination is like rather than just like washing less, right? Because obviously we need to wash clothes,
Yeah.
but also like doing habits like if you do wash clothes, like utilizing full loads instead of partial loads.
Plus, you save money because
Yeah,
you're using less water.
is one thing that helps too because it also reduces the tumbling friction of the clothes when it's more packed, so that way less microfibers end up being leached off. And also this one is a bit more pricey, but it's involves like an appliance change. Like if you have like a what is it? If you have like a top loading washer, right? If you transition to or change it to a front loading washer, that could also help you reduce uh, microfiber leaching off of the clothes because of the gentler washing action of the front loading washer, which helps reduce some of that friction as well. And also it's better compatibility with filters, right? Filtration devices and flint traps, which the top loading washer may not
This
necessarily have. But
sorry, this might be a stupid question, but what's a front load whatever washer? Isn't
okay,
there just one type of washer?
yeah, well, all washers, they wash, right? But the main difference is that a top loading washer is like you kind of open it from the top, and a front loading washer is one of those more futuristic looking ones that you open from the front.
Oh,
And so
I didn't know they
it's
all wash rows.
I thought it was all the same thing.
well, I mean, they all wash, right? But they have that specific difference as well with like the top loading washer may not necessarily have the filtration device or an adequate filtration device to capture those microfibers, microplastics.
Yeah.
But a front loading washer, has one, and it'll might even be able to like if let's say something happens to him, able to change it out more easily, or even for a better one, right? As well as that flint trap, right? So it's like these small things you can do to like not eliminate the problem entirely. Granted, some microplastics, very small ones, might still make it through, but like through the filters and the flint traps and end up in water treatment facilities. But it's anything that helps to help mitigate the problem, right? Even if it's a small action, any action that doesn't directly result in a net negative is a net positive and helps to kind of solve the problem little by little.
Yeah.
A solution that as much as I love your guys' solution, another solution that I thought could possibly, be beneficial with later life was just buying products that are less packaging.
Yeah.
And just kind of reusing like the same Tupperware or the same, bag. And I had found this website called litterless.com. And basically you can find like towns, but this is only for California. But you can like look for towns, and you can find like stores that are just zero waste. You can bring your own containers. There's a lot of like stores kind of just sell stuff or items that's like it's very little product, and the majority of it is just packaging. Here at the zero waste stores, you can really, you're paying for the product and not for the plastic and all that
For
stuff.
container.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to like taking those small steps, right? Even if it's
Yeah.
like reducing the use of these like packaging, right? Contains a lot of plastic as well, and that's also eliminating another potential source of like that packaging then resulting in like thousands or even millions of tiny microplastics that then contaminate everything.
Yeah, and you can do like small changes that'll end up helping you
Yeah.
financially. Like if instead of buying plastic water bottles all the time, just invest in a reusable water bottle, and then you pay less
Yeah.
for all
Yeah.
that. And
So
We do that at my house because we used to spend a lot of we're a big family, so in my house there's so many people. So since, buying water bottles, it's wasted money. It was like dollars, $2, for like
And with the
a pack.
inflation too, it's
Yeah, and then for like
Yeah.
a pack of like 25 water bottles, like no, we would have to go to the store all the time. So now what we do is we have like the big blue gallon. That way it's reusable. So we just go get the water and then go home. So that way waste less
yeah,
plastic and less
You
plastic
save
we're
money
throwing.
too.
Yeah,
yeah,
save money as well.
waste less, less plastic in the environment as a result. It's all ties back to those like small steps, right?
yeah,
And earlier I also brought up the fact about tire wear, like micro plastics from tire wear contributing to like half of the trillions of microplastics that end up in the Bay Area, and also a study I found that shows some like personal solutions we can take to help mitigate this is from MDPI by Johannes Wolfgang Neuper on June 4th, 2024. that states that measures that can be taken to reduce tire abrasion, which is like tire friction that then like leads to wear and tear that takes out these microfibers, is then that or like measures that can be taken to reduce tire abrasion are then carrying out wheel alignment maintenance, avoiding rapid acceleration or like brake or hard braking, making sure tires aren't under pressure, and like driving at moderate speeds. And like you listen to this and you're like, wait a minute, this guy is just talking about basic driving safety and vehicle maintenance. But this is also like one of those like three birds with one stone type of deal, right? Where it's like you properly maintain your vehicle and it's less likely to break down. You drive safely on the road and you help yourself and you help others. But then the third, I guess, consequence of that is that then you help reduce tire microplastics from tires, right, on the road because of that reduced friction. If your wheels are misaligned, increased friction. If you're accelerating or braking, increased friction leads to that greater tire wear and tear that then leads to that greater contamination in the streets, which is where that large figure of like, out of the trillions of microplastics, around half of it was from, tire wear and tear. And also it kind of also like helps to be mindful of this because like I was saying before, like I had no clue that tires contributed this much to like microplastics, but this kind of helps you keep in mind, okay, so I drive this vehicle and this vehicle can be a potential source of microplastic contamination, right? I don't want my environment to be more contaminated than it already is. So a step I'm going to take for myself is to just, on top of already being a good idea to practice safe driving and like proper vehicle maintenance, this adds like another layer of incentive after that. It's also more helpful to my environment because it leads to, less litter, less, this type of,
Yeah.
material
I have to
being
go
out
check
there.
my wheels then.
Yeah. I know. I gotta check mine.
Yeah, wheel alignment, tire pressure, these are all kind of
I have to
things
go
that
check
help
that out.
out.
And like, I like that you brought up. It's like we all have to do our part, because like in the Journal of Cleaner Production from February 2020, Doris Nickmeyer said that it like the most efficient recycling programs are like happen when the public participates. Like if there's just like a recycling center somewhere, and there's no people to help bring in the product, then it's not really worth anything. But if the community participates and bringing in all their stuff, then recycling has its benefits, like it can actually work for what we
Yeah,
do.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the usage of like using like your resources, like use social media to create that awareness. Like, oh, go take your cans and bottles to the first website you said. You get money or like join here, stuff like that. Kind of use what you're given to bring awareness to the problem.
Yeah.
yeah, especially also because it's not only bringing awareness but also inciting that collective action, and also reminding us that even if it's a small change, any change helps because it also helps to like kind of alter that mentality of like, oh, it doesn't matter what I do, right? The problem is so big that my contribution is insignificant, so it doesn't matter if I litter, if I throw millions of microplastics out there, there's already trillions, but it like anything helps, right?
Yeah.
If you have this like defeatist mentality, that also contributes to the problem by then making it greater, right? Compounding it. And so,
Yeah.
whether it be social media or whether it be like group efforts, it kind of helps us realize that, we can work together to make a change and any change is better than no change at all.
Yeah, it's
right?
like microplastics themselves. Like it may seem small, but they add up over time. So like make sure the small thing is good, not bad.
I
Yeah.
like how for your solution where you can recycle cans and get money, it can also be done for like younger people.
Yeah.
They can't get an actual job
Yeah,
and do that too.
like go around collecting.
Yeah, like go out to the street and then just pick up cans or whatever you see, and then the adult.
Yeah.
No fun.
And Jay, the program you brought up earlier, it was what was it called? Was it like Adopt a Street? Was it or
Yes, adopt a street.
okay? Because in my when I was looking for all the potential ways to like make personal action, I also came across a similar program that helps not just reduce like microplastics and plastic, but like various types of litter in general. And this program is called it's called Adopt a Beach. It's the Adopt a Beach program by Adopt a Beach. It's called Adopt a Beach, but you can adopt more than just a beach. It's headed by Heal the Bay and California Coastal Commission. And essentially with this program, it's like you get like a group of people. It could be like, friends, family, and whatnot. And you can adopt a beach, a park, a creek, a trail, and and if like the goal is to commit to cleaning it at least like 3 times a year, right? And when you meet this requirement of 3 times a year, you get like awarded by Heal the Bay and the California Coastal Commission. They award you a adopt a beach certification of completion, right? So it's not like as grand as like a monetary reward, or who knows, there may even
And
be
I was like,
one
yeah, some
if
people
you
like
ask,
that.
right?
Volunteering also looks good on college applications.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
really do.
It's like
So,
it's like a reward, like it gives you like that kind of like a physical
Like
reward for
cheap.
your effort to like acknowledge that what you've done is a good thing, right? Certificate of completion helps you out with like community service hours, helps you out, like Jasmine was saying, put it in on your college applications, right? We're in college, or,
Like, it's pretty
we're gonna
helpful.
might transfer. So this could be, an important, like a good action we can take. Not only good on our conscience, but on those resumes,
on those resumes.
on
Like
those.
just good all around.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to, let's say, learn more about this program, you can contact Coast for You at coastal.ca.org, or call 800 Coast for You. They'll be able to tell you more about the program, and that way you'll be able to not only better understand what you're getting into, but you might like the idea, might want to get some family together, get some friends together, and be like, we're gonna take some action to adopt the beach, adopt the trail, adopt the creek, and make some difference. Not necessarily immediate. It could be like 3 times a year. You can space it out, but it could be something to like help you bond with others, or something to just
Yeah, even help you
do in
find
your free time.
your people. People
Yeah,
you bond with.
exactly. And yeah, this has been a fun conversation. I like to, well, not necessarily fun in the causes and effects, but we've been into some potential solutions at the end, stuff we can do. And naturally, this, brings us to the end of our discussion. I want to say once more, I've been the moderator of this podcast, Francisco Morfin. This has been Jade, Berlin, and Jasmine. Thank you for tuning in to the Four Eyes podcast and hearing us talk about litter in the Bay Area. And we hope you enjoy listening to us as much as we did talking about this problem and potential fixes we can come up with to help make the world a better, cleaner environment. Thank you very much.
If you are interested in a career in sports broadcasting,
whether you're commentating a live game
or hosting your own TV show,
for more information, contact Greg Poff. That's me at solano.edu.
we hope to see you here next semester. And remember,
It's more than just sports. It's an education.